So, polls have opened in a three-way battle for the Gorton and Denton by-election between the Greens, Labour and Reform. Will Labour hold the seat? Or will Reform gain more ground? Or, possibly, will the Greens back up their left resurgence? This is a really interesting by-election because for the first time, it feels like we really have no idea where this is going to go, right?
Yeah.
Like, it could be any of those three parties taking the win tomorrow morning, and each one will be incredibly significant in defining the rest of this year politically. The first thing we should mention is the fact that we are not even bothering to think about the Conservatives here, which, sure, this is a traditional Labour heartland seat. Like, that's not surprising. But the fact that the Tories, the fact that the only challenger on the right is Reform, and the Tories are not even nibbling at that, is significant.
Yeah, they could lose their deposit, which is a conversation we've been having. So I think they need 5% to keep their deposit, and they're polling at 6%.
And what is their deposit?
I think it's the money that you pay to how much is it? It's 500
to field a candidate.
I think it's 500 quid you pay or something like that.
I mean, I would say it's only 500 quid, but from the way CCHQ is hemorrhaging money, they're going to need that 500
So
quid.
should we talk about where we are? So Opinion did a poll.
Yeah.
And this is an actual poll because we'll talk about dodgy graphs and fake polls
Matt
later.
Goodwin's polls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the opinion poll of the headline voting intentions in Gorton and Denton has all voters basically. Greens are up on 28%.
Mm-hmm.
Labour second, again on 28%, slightly lower than the Greens. Reform on 27%, and then the Tories on 6%, Lib Dems on 4%, and others on 6%. So it's a three-way tie of 28, 28, 27. Where the Greens have a slight advantage in the poll is likely voters. So these are people, obviously the voting intention for all voters is how would you vote if you were to vote today? And then they're asked if they're likely to vote or not. So Greens have a 2-point advantage on 30, with Labour and Reform both on 28 on likely voters. But this is all within the margin of error. It's from my time up there to the noise I'm hearing on the ground is that it's a very, very tight three-way race. And as of this morning, I actually heard Reform struggling a little bit compared to Labour and the Greens. I know I predicted last week that I think Reform might edge it. I'm now not sure that, from what I'm hearing and what I saw, that they'll be able to pull through. So it'll be about how many votes they take away and from who between Labour and the Greens.
So what was interesting was we heard that Keir Starmer was being told to stay away from the constituency, that Labour were sort of fielding the ground for a bad loss. They were talking about, they were basically expectation managing for a loss here. But over the past week, they're feeling a little bit more ambitious. They're feeling like actually...
Well, he went there, didn't he?
Keir Starmer actually visited the constituency, which is pretty significant.
And very rare. So generally, sitting prime ministers don't visit by-election results. And so when he went, I was a little bit surprised. And I ended up having a bunch of conversations with different people because I was shocked that he went, because that then firmly puts the result at your seat. Why would you risk that politically? And I was told, and I think this is true, that traditionally in a by-election, what you do is to say, we're behind by 1 point, we're behind by 2 points, or we're only up by 1 point, we're being squeezed by Greens, for example. And what that does is it sends a message to your voters that you need to come out and vote because it's a tight election. They can't do that in this election because there is a strong anti-reform vote in the constituency, as there was in Caerphilly. So if they say that we're being squeezed by the Greens, then that sends a message to your voters that your tactical vote to stop reform is Greens. And so they're actually having to do the opposite of what they traditionally do, which is expectation management. And they're having to actually say, we're the best chance, we're winning, basically. And a large part of Keir Starmer's attempt, because by the way, if I'm Angeliki, who's the candidate there, I don't want that guy anywhere near my constituency or my seat, right? But part of the reason why he has visited, or so I'm told, is to send a message to the voters that they think they're going to win and they're confident and that they're the anti-reform vote.
That's really interesting. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the controversies that have occurred during this campaign, because it has been one with plenty of headlines, and that wasn't surprising considering the significance of it. Not that long ago, a lot of Labour MPs, commentators, media types were saying if Labour lose the Gorton and Denton by-election, you could see the party move against the Prime Minister. So it's not unsurprising or not surprising, I should say, that this has been so widely covered by the media. But there have been plenty of things to cover. So 3 incidents related to the behaviour of political parties has resulted in complaints to the Manchester police.
They must be fucking done with it.
I know. The local academic, Professor Rob Ford, who used to work with Matt Goodwin, who is the Reform candidate, was quoted in green leaflets without permission under the headline, "Everyone agrees Labour are done." Ford said he did not endorse the Greens. The Greens have also faced criticism as a video appeared showing campaigners tearing down Labour signposts and putting them in a skip. Reform have also not been without their controversies. So a leaflet dropped through the doors in the constituency claiming to be from a concerned 74-year-old neighbour called Patricia Clegg sparked complaints to the police. Clegg's son claimed that she never signed off on the letter and has received a backlash online.
Oh, so we found Patricia.
Yeah,
because for the longest time, people didn't know if she was real and they were looking for Patricia. I hope you're well, Patricia.
Reform have also been involved in a printing error. They sent about 81,000 leaflets to the constituency voters from a concerned neighbour, which did not state they've been funded and distributed by the party. Presumably that is Patricia Clegg.
Mm-hmm. I've done that before, by the way.
What?
I did that in the election.
Sent 81,000 leaflets by accident.
We sent leaflets without the imprint by accident, and it was entirely my fault. And the police knocked on my.
As in, it wasn't clearly marked.
Yeah. So I think they explained it as well. When you send leaflets out, you have to say promoted by X from the Labour Party, and we had a double-sided letter that I had written to all constituents, and I logged onto the system and I went, no real letter is double-sided. So I got rid of the second half, which had the imprint on it, and then the police called.
See, the campaign materials are cheeky. They do definitely push them.
Except this one was from me and it had my face on the top of the leaflet. So it wasn't from someone else.
I believe you, Ali.
Yeah,
I believe you did it in good faith.
Police might be listening.
But like they will try and push it as far as they can to make it look not like a campaign leaflet. And we see that. I mean, listeners might recognise getting something through the door that looks like a local paper, and only if you read carefully do you realise actually it's a campaign from one of the political parties. Reform have also been accused of allegedly trying to bus in supporters from as far away as Blackpool and Kent to dominate audiences. And Labour too have been embroiled in controversy over a campaign leaflet.
This one is wild.
Residents in Gorton and Denton received a flyer purporting to be from a firm called Tactical Choice. Text on the leaflet had said the strategic choice would be Labour candidate Angelica Stoggia. The flyer reads, "The Tactical Choice says vote Labour," but it's not a real organisation. Labour.
They've also created a little logo, which
that is very naughty in my opinion. Labour has also been accused of gaslighting the public with an edited Reform clip of Matt Goodwin saying, it appeared that he was deriding Manchester. Labour shared the video on X of Goodwin telling the audience he was unfortunate enough to be in Manchester. Goodwin hit back claiming the statement was referring to Conservative Party conference. And I loathe to defend Matt Goodwin.
Yeah,
but
that
he is
one,
right.
Yeah,
that was taken out of context.
That was taken way out of context. Yeah.
The thing is, I think they don't. The political parties here, all of them, are so desperate they don't care really, because they know that one campaigning mishap, which they can sort of throw their hands up in the air and said, "Oh, it was an honest mistake." It kind of doesn't matter. Like they might get a sanction for it, there might be a bit of uproar, but ultimately it will be subsumed into the general chatter around the campaign. And just as it is when they put out these kind of hideous adverts during election time, they don't care if it upsets people because they know there will be some people who see it and it changes their mind. There will be enough people who saw that clip of Matt Goodwin deriding Manchester and they will think that's what he thinks about Gorton and Denton.
I think you're right, by the way. I think, and I haven't heard this, I'm just saying this is my gut feeling. I think that all parties will be thinking, whatever, we get slapped with a fine afterwards as long as we win the election. That's the most important thing. That's certainly what people like, for example, Starmer or Polanski and others. I don't know, maybe Polanski's not, but certainly Starmer might be thinking. Do you know what it feels like to me? I'm going to throw a sports reference at you. I hope that's okay, or a football reference specifically.
Not okay, but
okay. So it feels like we're in extra time of like a semi-final game, and like people are just going down injured, and like no one's playing football anymore. Yeah, if that makes sense. They just need to get over the line. Yeah. And everything will be dominated by the result, basically. The tactical voting one is wild. That is very... Here's what I wanted to ask you about. Did you see the meltdown online from the Green, Urdu and Bangla video? Did you see that?
No.
So the Greens are obviously targeting Muslim votes and minority community votes, and they created a little video where it had text and the language was in Urdu and then in Bangla later on with the video. And like obviously you're not on Twitter, so you live a much better life. But the absolute meltdown that like far right Twitter went into, how dare they speak English? This is England. I don't want your Sharon law in my country. It was crazy. And then the Greens followed it up by putting a Bangla video out.
I think Zack Polanski has run, or should I say Hannah Spencer has run a really interesting campaign where they are trying to be much more kind of relatable, chatty, social media driven. Like it's almost that kind of Mamdani style of like, we're just like ordinary people trying to make a difference here. But,
and I know it's going to be the next segment, what if they don't win? I think that's a significant risk for them. Because for all the talk of the being like leading in the polls and the green surge in the polls and the number of constituents that they've had, and the number of people that have been out on the doorstep and all the social media savvy stuff, the proof will be in the pudding in the vote, if that makes sense. And I do think that there is a risk that, say they come third, say it goes Labour, Reform, Green, or Reform, Labour, Green. Does that take some of the wind out of the balloon? Wind out of the sails, not balloon.
The sails, yeah.
Sails.
Yeah.
Wind out of the sails.
Or you could take air out of the balloon.
Or air out of the... So none of what I said was right. Do you not think... I mean, we'll talk about the implications later.
I mean...
But I think he needs to win.
I mean, I'd hate to... I'm going to save my thought on this for the next section.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to mention one more thing, which we've missed out when we're talking about the sort of lows that political parties will sink to. So... Labour have, interestingly, suddenly found their voice against the Greens, right? Previously, this was a threat that they were ignoring. They were focusing a lot of their attacks on reform. This last couple of weeks, Labour have been putting these attack adverts on social media. One of them shows a green syringe alongside the words, heroin, crack cocaine, spice, Green Party says yes.
Yeah, I don't like it.
No.
Yeah.
It's an interesting
no, they've been going heavy on
approach.
that also.
Yes, Starmer said the Greens' plan to legalise drugs is disgusting and would turn parks and playgrounds into crack dens.
Yeah, I saw that AI minister, not the minister for AI, Mike Tapp, the minister that was created in an AI bot machine. He's been going nuts over it. It's the kind of shit he would love draped in a flag in a fish and chips shop. Definitely British, swear he's British, loves Britain, hates drugs.
I mean, do you think that some of these things the Greens should stay stum on? So, like, their policy on legalising drugs...
it's just not going to go down well, is it?
This is what I mean. Like, I wonder if there's a lesson to... I mean, we'll see what will happen, but I hate to anticipate too much, but it will be interesting to see if they take from this, if they lose...
So that's
a softer approach towards some of their more left-wing policies.
Yeah. So, I have to be really clear. I'm not having a go at them here, but... Intellectually, they might be right, not in terms of... I'm not having a conversation about decriminalisation or legalisation, but intellectually, obviously, the way that we've dealt with drugs for like 20 years hasn't worked, clearly, right? Yeah. And I'm in favour of a health-based approach to drug policy anyway. Even though that might be intellectually right, sometimes in politics, and I hate that I'm saying this, but it's just true, even though a policy is right, you don't talk about it in this way because you know it's just too easy for your opponents to say you're going to give my 18-year-old son and daughter as they come out of university crack cocaine, basically, as like the state is going to sell, or like it's going to be legal to like buy crack cocaine at Tesco, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like the Ming Vase approach, which Labour had, and everyone, including me, was like, they're just taking the Ming Vase across the floor. They're just not saying anything controversial because they need to get elected, and the public is genuinely quite right wing. But then it actually turned out that there was nothing inside the Ming Vase anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
It was empty.
I don't think they have to be careful though. I think the Greens do have to be disruptive. And if I was writing their electoral strategy, which I'm not, but if I was right, then I think they have. And that Mamdani was very disruptive in policy. But you have to take policy that everyone agrees with.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and we know that's cost of living stuff, right?
Yeah, not heroin.
No, not turning schools into crack dens.
Can heroin solve the cost of no?
Okay. Right, we're going to go to a break now, but don't go anywhere as there's still loads to discuss as we get closer and closer to the polls closing in Gorton and Denton. Stay tuned. So we're going to continue the conversation about Gorton and Denton. Ali, I want you to read out the message you've just got, which I haven't heard yet.
So I've texted isn't this exciting? I have sources. I'm not a journalist.
No need to brag.
No, I'm not
supposed to be the one with sources.
Yeah, this is the first one. So I've texted someone who I trust up there who's knocking on doors. And so I said, how's it looking? And I've just gotten a reply back. So I'm going to, I don't think this gives away who it is. Lots of green stakes up. I honestly don't know. I think the Greens might edge it, but I haven't been to Denton, the reform area. Looks like it's a Green win.
Oof.
Which is surprising to me. I thought Labour would hold on.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about the political, the political conclusions, I guess, for each of these parties. So let's start with the Greens, because these were kind of the dark horse in this race. Like, this felt like it was going to be between Labour and Reform for a long time. And it does increasingly feel, and we've seen some polls now that have put the Greens out on top. We were talking before about Hannah Spencer's campaign. So just to refresh our listeners, so Hannah Spencer, 34 years old. She's been a plumber since leaving school at 16 and is currently training to become a plasterer. She's big on social media. She's got a very kind of fun, I would say quite pretty youthful energy, but, you know, got that kind of plucky green campaignery vibe to her. Zack Polanski has been very present in the constituency as well, campaigning alongside. The thing that is really interesting about a Green victory here is this isn't a typical Green target seat. So when the Greens are talking about expanding their reach at the next election, they're talking about the sort of constituencies where they came second in the last election. And they're mostly the kind of inner city, progressive, studenty places like Bristol, for example, parts of London, you know, Hackney, or the kind of rural, slightly more kind of Tory-leaning constituencies, which have locals that are very concerned about local issues, the green natural beauty of their area,
Tories
ecology, water, you know. That, and we talked about before how that is a fault line in the party, but it is interesting if you want to kind of map out where Green voters sit. What's particularly interesting about Gorton and Denton is that's kind of neither of those, right?
Yeah. I actually think if you were to divvy this up, right, so if we were to go, what happens if Labour wins? What happens if Reform wins? What happens if Greens win? I think the most seismic result will be a Green victory, because I think if Labour wins, yes, it shifts a little bit of the conversation around Starmer. He might have more time. If Reform wins, it gives them more momentum, but they have the momentum anyway, and everyone is talking about them being the next sort of the next government anyway, as the polls suggest. If Greens win, I actually think it significantly shifts the conversation for them, in that it takes the Green surge away from opinion polls and into a real poll, right? Then the media just take you more seriously, the institutions take you more seriously, but also people know that they can transform this sort of online momentum into votes on the ground. That's one. The second one, I think, particularly given the three-way race and Reform's involvement, it allows Greens to tell the story that they're the Stop Reform candidates, which is huge, because if you look at Caerphilly, Plaid obviously became the Stop Reform candidate and won that seat, and that's a story they're going to tell all across Wales now. You can guarantee every Plaid leaflet is going to say we're the Stop Reform candidates. Greens will not only be able to point to polls, but to a real result around the country, and I think it'll open up seats for them that aren't on their hit list right now, and so I think a Green result will be the most seismic. Equally, I think they need the win. I think if they come third specifically, I think it will take some of the air out the sails. See how I've sorted it around this time.
Nice.
It was wind out of the
air
and then they could face the accusation of being a little bit too online, not enough on the ground, not having the infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be seismic if Greens win. I did also see a tweet from a journalist today, Kate something, I forget, who said that a source of hers told her that they overheard Zack Polanski on the train saying he doesn't feel confident. Really? Don't know if that means anything.
But I guess they shouldn't feel confident.
No, they're not supposed to win the seat.
And if they did feel confident, Zack Polanski, you hope, would know better than to announce that on a crowded train carriage.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Because
can I ask? Okay.
I was just going to say, because we know that whenever there's a close by-election, even if a party feels confident, you always expectation manage to say, you know.
Yeah, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Keir Starmer, the implications for him. Give me your thinking. What are the implications for him? Obviously, if Labour wins, we know, pretty much. We have a sense it's good. If Greens win, if Reform wins, which one's worse?
I think personally for Keir Starmer, it's worse if the Greens win. It's better for the Labour Party than if Reform win. Because if Reform win, I think that is going to bolster the right of the Labour Party once again. People like Mike Tapp, the kind of the MPs who fell under Morgan McSweeney's spell, that actually in these working class red wall areas, the best thing Labour can do is push right. Because you have to remember, these voters are seen as like the only voters that matter. And I'm sure we'll talk about how annoying first past the post is for voters and helping to manage which way parties direct their attention and everything. But I think if Reform win this, that is going to give more wind to the sails of the right of the Labour Party, who are going to think, actually, we need to push right, we need to go further and faster on immigration, law and order. You know, that is going to be our focus. If the Greens win, that actually should bolster the voices of the left of the party, who are saying, actually, we are hemorrhaging more voters, and this is true, to the Lib Dems and to the Greens than we are to Reform. We are far better energising our base at the next election, looking to those lost voters, bringing them back, and trying to introduce policy that is progressive and that making those arguments to try and keep those voters, rather than trying to win back these Reform voters who, many of them, they might have voted Labour at the last election, but before that they voted Tory. You know, they're not ideologically aligned to core Labour values. They are voters who often vote, you know, kind of according to, I guess, how angry they feel with the government at the time. So,
yeah.
And I don't think that MPs are convinced that Keir Starmer could be the figurehead of a leftward.
Is it also not the case that it makes the Andy Burnham decision look worse if it's Green win? Or does that not matter?
I think that's probably true, but I think that is probably true. But I think, and while I do agree with that, I think that epiphany will come second to the broader question of what does this mean for our policy platform now?
Yeah.
And there was all this talk about, is there going to be a reshuffle? Would Keir Starmer bring much more kind of left-wing figureheads to the front of the party? Could you get an Ed Miliband Chancellor, for example? If I were Keir Starmer and the Greens won, my first point of action would be to have a reshuffle to try and save my skin, but I don't think it would buy much time.
Yeah, reset number, 43, 44? Yes, that's certainly true. None of this will be enough for him to go now, though, will it?
I don't think so.
It'll be May.
Purely, again, because we still just don't have an obvious successor.
Yeah.
So if Labour win is an interesting question. Where does that leave Keir Starmer?
Well, I think it does depend on the victory. I think it buys him time, certainly. Yeah. It might buy him cover in May, depending on how badly things go in May. Now, there's a problem with May, by the way, which we haven't spoken about, which is that the government was forced to U-turn on the cancelling of elections in a bunch of seats, many of whom are Labour. So now many people are anticipating May to be a little bit worse than it was going to be for Labour, because we're going to lose seats in lots of places that weren't supposed to have elections or weren't going to have elections. But I think if he, depending on the result, if he wins with a nice number, then I think it might buy him cover in May, depending on how badly it goes. And particularly because he visited it himself, he takes a little bit of it more on. It protects him completely from the Andy Burnham accusations.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
a little bit.
It puts Burnham to bed for a bit. Let's just briefly touch on reform. What this would mean if a reform win. Apart from the fact that we would have Matt Goodwin as an elected member of the House of Commons.
We've both kind of...
Which is
so tough. that heroin isn't legal yet for me. No.
But yeah, what are we going to do? What would it mean for reform to win this seat?
I So I tell you what, I've been a little bit baffled by Reform's strategy. Nigel Farage has gone heavy on this Chagos stuff. Have you seen? He went to Chagos. Didn't he try to go to Chagos? They didn't let him in.
Yes, because just like they wouldn't let you into an RAF base or any kind of military zone. You can't just turn up at like Area 51 and be like, they wouldn't let me in, or you know. I can't think of any RAF Bryce Norton. You know, of course they're not going to let you in.
Can we count that as a deportation?
Well, that would be nice. What do you mean, though, that you...
So
hang on.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I'm so surprised that you haven't thought much of GB News presenter Matt Goodwin's by-election campaign after his campaign manager had to resign because he was participating in online discussions about Holocaust death tolls, where he asserted that 6 million Poles, including some Jews, had been murdered, and has posted many anti-Semitic and misogynistic social media posts. What, you didn't like his campaign?
I didn't know this.
Yeah,
this is crazy.
They had to suspend him.
Yeah, his campaign manager.
Yes.
I mean, it's Reform. Like if you'd washed out the party name, I would have told you that's either Restore or Reform. No, I've just been surprised that Nigel Farage has gone so heavy on Chagos, because no one, like, it may be an important issue, right? But no one on the door gives a toss about Chagos.
Local voters in Gorton and Denton who just want their wages to mean something and to be able to get a GP appointment and for their kids' school to be able to afford pens, don't give a flying fuck about the Chagos Islands.
But do you not think this is an interesting moment where ideology has superseded politics when it comes to Farage and Reform? Because they're ideologically going after Chagos. It makes no political sense. This week so his PMQ question this week was on Chagos. How is it not looking to Gorton and Denton? Pick an issue that's important to people in Gorton and Denton, right? He hasn't visited Gorton and Denton as far as I've seen. It's been a really, really strange strategy. So it makes me wonder whether they don't think they can win.
Yeah, they're kind of like pivoting away.
Yeah, to try and kind of cool expectation management.
I do think it would be interesting though, because as you pointed out earlier, Reform lost that carefully by-election, which was supposed to be a pretty pivotal moment for them. The Stop Reform vote was big.
If they lose again,
I think it does slightly put a spanner in the works for this kind of Reform's unstoppable. They're going to get all these seats in Parliament, because when people say that, we have to take every poll with a pinch of salt, because a poll is just a poll. It's a snapshot of that moment in time. But you're not polling the number of people who actually, when push comes to shove, do not, and the majority of people do not like Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
We know that most people don't like Reform. What is the breadth and the depth of feeling for those voters, even if they don't like Labour, even if they're not convinced by the Greens or the Lib Dems, to come out and stop Reform? And I think that's what's being underestimated.
Yeah, and that's it's not just how many people support you, but the fervency of opposition. That's something Trump really struggled with against Biden in his second election was. You want to motivate people to vote for you as well, but it's really difficult when you have a really motivated opposition as well who want to stop you. And I think you're right. Like we've all, and bar you actually, of all the media I've done, I think you're the only one who's been a little bit more clear-eyed on, assumed that Reform are on this sort of runaway train, right? Their best poll has them, 30%, of which that's only 60% of the country who's going to vote anyway. They're not that popular in the country.
No, most people don't like Nigel Farage.
He's
like,
also
they
got
net
negative favourability rating. Yeah.
And then you get stories like this story that was broken by the Lancashire Lead, which is the sister publication of the Lead UK, that the deputy council leader in Lancashire retweeted a post calling for a Labour MP to be shot.
Yeah, that was asked in
and
PMQs.
Nigel Farage would refuse to take action
and refused to actually even comment on it in PMQs, because Keir Starmer directly challenged him to sack the person and condemn him, and he didn't reply.
Yeah. I think these things. I think it's really easy if you spend a lot of time on X, as the Reform, as
or
Reform
even just in
politicians
Westminster.
Which is shaped by X, to think that everybody is full of hate and grievance, and everyone just wants to burn everything down. And yes, voters are angry, but most voters don't want to see their neighbour be deported. They don't want to see people get stripped of settled status. They don't want to see women lose access to abortion. They don't want to see people like Matt Goodwin spewing the politics of hate and grievance. They actually just want to get on with their lives.
You're kind of convincing me that they need a victory here.
I think, if not...
Because how often can you lose before you become a loser?
I think the wind and the air, in both the sails and the balloons, is going to be, well...
What a great call!
It's going to be a windy day in Gorton and Denton. I'll tell you that for free.
You've been on a nice roll today. You asked me to guess. What's your prediction? So I still think Labour are going to hold.
You think Labour are going to hold?
I think so.
I'm going to give it Greens.
Do you think we should invite Hannah Spencer on?
We should. I think. Okay, my question for you: how many recounts is there going to be?
2.
2.
Yeah. I think it'll be that close. I think it'll be Labour by like 20 votes.
And timings wise, just if any listeners are interested,
go to bed.
Usually go to bed.
Yeah. It's gonna be 4 a.m.
Yeah. Don't be a nerd. Nothing.
No,
exciting.
you just won't get it. I don't think, because I think if there wasn't going to go to recounts, it'll be at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
There'll be 2 recounts. It'll be 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah. Okie doke. All right. Well, that is it from Politics Uncensored today. Join us next Thursday at 5 p.m. when we unwrap all the week's political talking points.
You can stay up to date with the show by following at Politics Uncensored UK on social media, where you can find me at Ali Milani Live.
And me at Zoe Grunewald.
If you've missed any of today's show, you can listen back and catch up at fubarradio.com or via the Fubar Radio app.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Politics Uncensored.